Hello, I am a woman in my late 50s. I am a working mom with a daughter and a son. I got married early and gave birth to my first daughter early. In fact, I became pregnant with my daughter before getting married. I was worried when I found out I was pregnant, but I felt it was important to have the baby as soon as possible. This led to an easier marriage than I had expected. My husband was a graduate student and I had just graduated from college. We met at a collegiate association meeting. My mother-in-law inherited a lot of land from her late husband and made a lot of money through real estate investments. When I formally met my mother-in-law, she said, "If your parents were not in business, I would never allow this marriage." She was very blunt and intimidating, and I was taken aback. During those days, women were often judged more harshly than men for having a premarital pregnancy. I was afraid of what others would say, and my mother was also very careful to keep my situation a secret. However, she treated me with love and affection at home. She said, "Now that you have decided to have your baby, I will support your decision. Once you are married and living happily with your baby, I do not think your mother-in-law will have anything more to say to you. I am grateful for my mother's support, and I will live happily for her sake." So we got married and started our newlywed life. However, my mother-in-law never sent us any of her money. Her words before the marriage were not empty promises. My husband did not have a stable financial situation yet because he was still studying, and it was not easy for me to find a job while pregnant. As a result, we had to live with our parents, and my parents became responsible for us. For several months, my in-laws did not even send any money to help with their own son's tuition, and it was only my parents who provided us with financial support. This made me upset. "Honey, is your mother really serious and expecting my parents to pay for your tuition? Didn't you say that your parents would pay for everything for me? What are you talking about?" "I have never said that. It was all settled when you came to meet my mom at our house." "Why are you saying something different now? That was just what your mother said, and not what I said." I was dumbfounded by my husband, who believed that my parents would do exactly as his mom demanded, that my parents pay for everything. But I heard that his older brother, who is in England, had his wife pay for everything, and he became a doctor. Since my brother became a medical school professor, his wife is now being treated well as the wife of a medical school professor and lives affluently, thanks to my brother. So it's only natural for us to do the same, right? When I get my doctorate and become a professor, it will be you who is treated as the wife of a professor, not my mom, right? It was a really strange logic. However, since my husband and his mother acted so confidently, I wondered if that was right, and I felt like I was doing something wrong. Although I got married because I was pregnant, I also had strong thoughts that I should try hard in our marriage and avoid any conflicts. As I discussed the situation with my mother, she sighed. "If you don't have money right now, the one who can't do anything is you, my daughter, so I have to give it to you, and for your husband too. He has to finish his studies quickly, so he can act as the head of the household. Anyway, let's try to help your husband get his degree quickly." I felt guilty and sorry for my parents. I thought that when my husband got a job, we should pay them back, and give them ample spending money, including setting up a savings account for their retirement. Even though my husband knew very well that his situation was being paid for by my parents, he never once said thank you to them. The same goes for my mother-in-law, who never said anything. Instead, whenever I went over to her house, she would tell my husband, as if for me to hear, "You better be nice to me while I'm alive if you want to receive any land from me after I'm gone. You better come quickly whenever I call you, and never expect any of my money while I'm alive. I am alive. Aren't you going to take it later anyway?" She said that to stop any complaints about my parents paying for our living and college expenses for our son. Somehow, our marriage survived, and I finally gave birth to a daughter. Everyone in my family was happy and congratulated me, but my mother-in-law didn't even show up. My mother finally said something to my husband. "How busy is your mother that she still hasn't come to see her new granddaughter? They will be out of the hospital and going home the day after tomorrow. Shouldn't your mother be the first to come and visit the hospital?" Then the next day my mother-in-law came to the hospital and complained. Did you marry my son just to have a daughter? It's not even a son to continue our family's lineage. Yet, how dare you demand your mother-in-law to come and go while you lie in bed after giving birth to a girl? Don't you expect to receive anything from me and raise her on your own? I was fortunate that my mother wasn't there to hear my mother-in-law's unreasonable tirade, because she would have fainted in shock. I couldn't answer because of severe pain in my stomach, and I still had no energy. And my mother-in-law looked at our baby and left without saying anything. I didn't know what my husband said, but I thought I shouldn't have said anything. After my daughter was born, my parents still had to help us financially for almost everything. Even when we celebrated our daughter's first birthday, my mother-in-law didn't even send any gifts for her. My parents gave up on my in-laws after witnessing their behavior and didn't even ask if they came by or what they sent as gifts. I decided to start working after my daughter turned 1 and began looking for a job. Even though my parents gave us money without saying anything, I felt too guilty to keep accepting it. Thanks to my major in fashion design, I was able to get a job at an apparel company. My husband would go to his classes later than me. We would have breakfast together, and he would take care of our daughter. When I came home from work, he would go to the library or study at home until late at night. Several months passed like that when suddenly my mother-in-law summoned me to her place when it wasn't even a weekend. I didn't feel very comfortable since she called me on a weekday when there were no special family events planned. When I went to her house, she wouldn't even let me come up the front door steps and threw a bucket of cold water at me. Did you decide to make my son your handyman or a butler who watches your daughter? Why? Did your parents say they could no longer give you money? Is that why you went out working and mistreating my son? Mother, it's not like that. My parents did not say that. I was just sorry that I kept receiving money from them, so I got a job. Besides, watching his own daughter is not the same as being a butler. Don't say that. And just because I work, I never neglected my husband. You're saying that my son watching the baby is neglecting your husband. If it isn't because your parents are not giving money, quit working immediately. When a woman disrespects her husband just because she's making some money, the family is doomed. If there's no money, we can just eat bread. You should live according to your standards. Don't get a big head and run around outside. If you want to receive even a tiny plot of land from me, you better do as I say. I was too shocked that I didn't even wipe away the dripping water on me and came home shivering. My baby was crying by herself while my husband was sleeping without any care in the world. When I woke him up, he didn't even ask why I was all wet, and just got upset at me for coming home late. As I comforted my daughter in my arms, I quietly wept. At that time, I really didn't know what to do. Eventually, I ended up quitting my job and told my mom about my situation. It isn't easy to work and take care of the house chores, so usually when a woman gets married, she quits working. But you did it the opposite way, so it must have been hard for you. Your dad won't say anything, so don't worry. Mom, I am sorry and thank you. When James gets his doctorate, I'll start working again. So we continued to receive financial support from my parents, and after 3 years, finally, my husband got his doctorate degree. Then he started to work at a research center, and I thought I could sigh in relief. I didn't think I would have to keep getting help from my parents. During that time, my father's business was in difficulty, so I knew it was hard for them to send money. Thus, I was very relieved. My parents didn't say anything and just congratulated us. Then I went to my mother-in-law's house with my husband and she asked, "Did your parents mention anything about doing something for James?" "Pardon? Doing something for James? What do you mean?" "Then their son-in-law finally got a great job, so shouldn't they do something for him? They could at least get him a new car." "Mother, do you know how much my parents have spent on us all this time? I am just grateful to receive their congratulations. Since they were just some lowly merchants, how would they know any elites who work in one of the top government think tanks that make a nation's policies? And if I were to die, how much land and money would you inherit? It's not even enough to say thank you forever. Yet, your sister-in-law, followed all the proper steps to get married, and didn't treat my son like that. Why is it that your family doesn't know any etiquette? I was so upset and ashamed that I trembled while holding my baby, but my husband acted as if he couldn't care less and just watched TV while eating some fruit. He must be so used to this kind of atmosphere that it meant nothing to him that I was being treated so poorly by his mother. I started to get frustrated, wondering if I would have to live like this for the rest of my life. To make things worse, my father's business started to fail, so it wasn't the same. Despite the hardship, my mom still bought an expensive watch for my husband to celebrate his new job. My husband just dryly nodded his head as a sign of thanks, but he didn't even wear the watch. "Honey, why aren't you wearing the watch my mom got you?" "That? It's embarrassing. Everyone wears expensive foreign luxury brand watches, so it's beneath me. But it's a gift from my mom, and you should wear it." Why should I care what other people say? It only matters if it's meaningful to me. I also hate it. It looks so cheap. I think your mom has no sense. Is that all you can say about my mom? That day, I had a big fight with my husband. I think I exploded because of all the hurtful things that were building up inside me from his mom. A few days later, my mother-in-law came over to our house. Then, she suddenly handed over divorce papers. "Mother, what is this? I heard that your dad's business is going bankrupt. And your family wasn't that rich to begin with, right? If they couldn't even afford to take care of my son, why should I continue to look at you? It seems like you acted as if you didn't know that your parents were in financial trouble. But how could you keep your mouth shut about it? And weren't you just trying to take my money, right?" I won't stand for that. When she said that, I no longer wanted to live with my husband. I just regretted the past and felt wronged. However, I didn't even think about bringing a lawsuit or asking for any alimony. When getting divorced, a lot of people looked at the woman as if she was the guilty party, so I think I thought that subconsciously too. Now, the times have changed, and getting divorced is just as normal as being a happy single person. If the times were like now, getting divorced wouldn't have been such a big deal. My mother-in-law accused me of being a gold digger and trying to freeload off of her son, and I was practically kicked out with my baby by my mother-in-law. Even though we left, my husband made an excuse that he was busy at work and didn't even call me once. I gritted my teeth and made a vow not to cry in front of my baby daughter. When I came home, my dad was trying to save his company from going bankrupt and was struggling very hard. My mom also sold every piece of jewelry she had and anything of value. I also started designing clothes in the wholesale jobbers market. No company would accept a divorced woman with a young baby. I was so busy trying to make a living that I even forgot about all the injustices done to me by my in-laws. I paid close attention to each design and gave my best. Fortunately, the clothes I designed started to sell well. I was proud because I felt like my efforts were being rewarded. My parents did their best to take care of my daughter, making sure that no one would notice she came from a financially struggling family. They provided everything she needed. After a few years, thanks to my dad's efforts, an investor decided to invest a large sum of money into my father's business, and it returned to its original status. Not only that, my dad partnered with the company I worked at and started an apparel business exporting to Southeast Asia. During this time, I met with a design patent lawyer to legally protect my designs. I learned that he was also divorced. We understood each other well, and it naturally led to a romantic relationship. Eventually, we decided to get married. My daughter was in middle school at the time, so I was worried she might feel hurt. However, she actually matured more than me and encouraged me, saying, "Mom, forget all the bad things, and I wish you will be happy from now on." I was confused and asked, "What bad things?" She replied, "I have no such memories, but I know how Grandma and Dad used to give you a hard time." She embraced me, and I was thankful for her understanding. After being remarried for 2 years, I gave birth to a son. In the meantime, I ended up managing the apparel business alone, which I used to do with my dad. He separated the business for me to run independently. My new husband moved to a large law firm, and my daughter, influenced by her stepfather, studied law to become an attorney like him. I continued to export internationally, but also decided to target the domestic market. I constructed a building for our company because all the offices were spread apart, and the design studio was far away, making it inconvenient. I believed having everyone in one building would be more efficient, even if it wasn't a large one. I heard that a large piece of land was listed in a hurry, so I went to consider it for constructing our building. It wasn't that large but ample enough for my company, so I decided on it. Beside was a small building, and I thought it just needed a remodeling. After discussing it with my husband, we went back to take a look at the land together. And then, the real estate broker said the landowner wanted to make a contract immediately. When we went to the real estate office, the broker asked us to wait since the landowner would be coming shortly. We waited for about 30 minutes and got up to leave. We are too busy, so we can't wait any longer. We just want to take one more look to decide. So could you show it to us? Then someone rushed into the office in a hurry. Am I late? I was quite startled. It was my ex-mother-in-law. She recognized me, and she was so shocked that she almost fell backward. What are you doing here? Then when the broker said that we were the buyers, she couldn't even close her mouth. I told my husband to leave. We don't need to take another look. Let's just void the talk. Then the broker tried to hold us, asking what was the reason, but I rejected him firmly and came out of the real estate office. No matter how great the location and the pricing, I didn't want to own the land that my ex-mother-in-law once had. Later, I received a call from an unknown number. I haven't said anything, even though I missed my granddaughter, but now I need to see her. Why now? Why? Before you never looked at her because she was not a son. What do you mean? Why would I not miss my granddaughter? It made me worry, even though she is worse than an enemy to me. To my daughter, she was her paternal grandmother. So, I cautiously asked my daughter since I thought her opinion was more important. If she wants to see me, I'll meet with her. It shouldn't be a big deal. She replied like an adult, but I was worried. If she said anything mean, I didn't know what to do. So, I started to regret telling my daughter about her grandmother. In the end, I confessed my feelings to my mom. How could you meet up with her like that? It's truly a small world. Still, don't worry too much. Your daughter is smart. Even if her grandmother tries to say something improper, she is not the type to take it. That woman is still your daughter's grandmother, so I don't think she would say terrible things, would she? My mom tried to allay my worries, but I was still nervous, so I told my daughter that I would go with her. Mom, Grandma said she wants to see me alone. I'll go by myself. Still, I should go with you. How can I send you there alone? I'm not a child. I'll be alright. I'll call you after I meet her. But I still followed her secretly and sat in a corner. Soon my ex-mother-in-law came in and met with my daughter. She caressed my daughter's back, ordered a drink, and sat down. Then she started to show her true scheming side. No matter what, you are our blood. Even if you live with your mom, you don't belong to your mother's family. I heard you get good grades at school. If you get high grades and become successful, you have to repay your debt to your father for all the things you were not able to do for him. Being kind to your dad is the way to become more successful. So from now on, you need to do whatever you can for your dad. I became furious. She was saying the same words she used to say to me. I was so angry that I wanted to rush over to her and give her a piece of my mind. But my daughter said, I'll be responsible for my life, but Dad must be responsible for his own. He wasn't responsible for me, was he? How could you say that about your dad? Even if you didn't live with him, he's still your dad. Did your mom teach you to be like that? If you become successful, it's obvious that you need to take care of your dad, don't you? Then I couldn't help but get up and run over to their side. You don't make any sense. It was my mother's voice. I didn't know when she came in. But she came in, holding my daughter's hand tightly and standing beside her. My ex-mother-in-law was so surprised and looked at my mom before getting up. I initially thought it was just my granddaughter coming out alone. But why are you here? Do you think I would let my precious daughter go out alone when she is meeting with such harsh people? I am her grandmother. How dare you address me like that? Did you educate her to behave in such a manner? It depends on what kind of grandmother you are. Are you really her grandmother who insists on your granddaughter taking care of her father at their first meeting? You never once even gave her a warm hug, and now all of a sudden you bring up blood lineage and all that? It was you who gave birth to your son, so why do you keep delegating your responsibilities to someone else? If your son is precious, you should be the one responsible for him until the end. How could you preach to a young girl to take care of her father? Is that something an adult should say? You are saying awful things in front of a young child. I have nothing more to say if you continue to portray me as a bad grandmother. But I didn't say anything wrong. These days, kids are treated too leniently, so they have no responsibilities towards their parents. They become selfish. I couldn't bear it any longer. Stop saying nonsense. Who are you to say such things? Weren't you the one who forced a divorce on me when you heard our family was failing financially and kicked your granddaughter and me out of your family? And what? I didn't want to say this in front of my daughter, but I still regret being deceived by you and paying for your son's tuition. Raising a child leniently? Then of course I raised my child leniently. Why should my child be forced to take care of her father who has done nothing for her? Isn't that being too selfish? He never sent a single penny for child support and never even bothered to ask to see her. Then people around us kept staring at my ex-mother-in-law. I took hold of my mom and my daughter and asked them to leave. But my ex-mother-in-law rushed to stand in our way, blocking us. Don't be like that, I said, let's talk. The reason I said these things was because... That's why I'm asking you, Denise. We're going through a lot of financial difficulties right now. Can you please pay a little more for the land you were planning to buy? My mom and I were shocked and couldn't speak. Just as I was about to snap at her, my daughter beat me to it and said, "Grandma, you shouldn't bother my mom about this. I know you never liked me, and you gave my mother a hard time. And Dad never stood up for her, not even once. So why should I do anything for him? I already have a dad who happens to be an attorney. If you cause any more problems for my mom, I'll tell my dad and he'll handle it legally. So please don't do that." Then, my ex-mother-in-law held on to me and pleaded, "Honey, please help us. If we don't sell that land now, it'll be a disaster. It's our last asset. Please help us." I couldn't believe it. Is my daughter a bank that you can just ask for money whenever you need it? Stop it now. When my mother yelled at her, she finally let go of me. I later found out that her oldest daughter-in-law had returned from England and convinced my ex-mother-in-law to give her an early distribution of the inheritance. After everything was transferred to her name, she cashed it all out and ran away abroad by herself. And on top of that, my ex-mother-in-law was scammed in a real estate fraud and ended up with a huge debt. Even her current house is at risk, and if she can't sell the land immediately, she'll be homeless. She used to brag about all her properties, but she was betrayed by her oldest daughter-in-law and ended up with nothing. It's true what they say, you reap what you sow. Because she kept calling me and my daughter, my husband had to get a restraining order against her. So she couldn't contact us or come near us. After that, I didn't hear from her for a long time, but I recently heard that she couldn't find her oldest daughter-in-law and lost her house to the bank. Now she's living in a small basement studio apartment and relying on my ex-husband's salary to pay off her debt and barely make ends meet. And barely making a living. I am working and trying my best. My husband and the kids are doing well too. My dad's business has been running a stable business. Even if I struggle, I try not to make things hard for other people. It's a lesson that I learned from my experience. Now I want to shed the past fully and really live the rest of my life in a proper way. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope that all of you will be happy always and only good things will come to you. Stay healthy, everyone. Please cheer for me and write your comments of wisdom in the comment section. Pressing like and subscription is a big help to me. Have a wonderful day.